Hey guys, it's Coach Bricks.
Coach James.
The game changes. Hey, I wanted to talk about athletes that are coming back, or even anybody coming back from an injury, okay? So we get a lot of athletes that, haven't really worked with us in the past, but then reach out to us and say, hey man, I hear you guys work with stuff getting back from an ankle injury, knee injury, shoulder, whatever. Okay, I get tons of these. One of the things I try to tell the person who's in here is you want to get back as quickly as possible in the safest manner possible, okay? You also want to make sure that you don't overcompensate on one side. And this is one thing that therapists don't do well, doctors don't encourage, and just people in general. We just tend to get by. So if I hurt my knee on my right side, all right, my left side automatically, okay, you don't tell it this, automatically will pick up slack. Why? Because it knows it has to function a certain way. Okay, here's the problem though. If I continue not to take care of the knee, all right, the right side, all right, I let it linger, I let it go on, I let it do these kind of things. Eventually the left side is going to have problems. Everybody say, well, I didn't hurt my left side. You're overcompensating on one side too much. That can't handle it. It can only handle it for a short amount of time. And then eventually it has to give way. Okay? So we had an athlete that we were dealing with, sprained their ankle. Okay? Didn't do much for it, just did the normal crap of rest, ice, the stuff that you should never do. Okay? And that's a whole other topic. But you should never do those things. And that's what they did. So they felt better. A week and a half later, they go out, 2 or 3 practices in, re-injure the ankle. Have no idea why. They just think that there's a reason why. Your body naturally never got better because you didn't rehab it correctly. Okay? And just because you go to rehab doesn't mean it's being rehabbed correctly. Okay? You got to be pushed. You got to be challenged. You got to get back as quickly as possible. So when we get a lot of these ankle patients, okay, that come in here, some of them are put immediately in a boot, which is another thing that's just, I don't understand why we still do this kind of stuff. But anyway, and then they can't move it right. Okay? They've been in the boot for 3-4 weeks. Yeah, I don't know why, man. It hurts doing this now, trying to get their foot straight. Well, it's because your body compensated for what you did to it and put it into a pattern that's not supposed to be in. Now we're trying to get it back right, and now it's hurting again. The reason is because we're not doing the things properly. So when I get an athlete who calls me up and says, what should I do? Don't ice it and don't rest it. You need to start moving it. Every single time. This is 100% of the time. Okay? So it's just not, okay, maybe 50% of the time. Every single time I've had a client like that, they've come back 10 times quicker. I've had clients that have been told 6 weeks you're sitting out, have been back in a week. Is it because I'm a genius? Not at all. Not anywhere close to it. All right? Because God gave me the ability to see these things, but then also to implement them and understand that the human body is not made the way that most people treat it today. It is made 100% a lot of times opposite of what we do. So the rest ice compression elevation is stupid, okay? Stupid. The body wants to move. That is what it wants to do all the time. It wants to move, it wants to get active. So I get it moving right away. Now granted, I'm not putting pressure on it, but I'm elevating it and I'm moving it and I compress it. Those are the 3 things. I call it the MEC method, the movement, elevation, compression. Coach James does a phenomenal job with the athletes when I'm not here. He gets right on it. Boom, and these athletes are like, wow. We just had a girl, we're talking about she came in, 7 out of 10 pain when she first came in. When she left that same session, now remember, she'd gone to therapy, she'd done other things, hadn't gotten any better. She was at a 7 out of 10 pain. She left with what, 2, 3?
2 to 3, and that's how she's done the rest of the week.
Yeah, so automatically dropped her down. Automatically got that down in one session, in a 45-minute workout. Why? Because I don't want her compensating on the other side too long, or she's gonna have issues over there. And I see it with one of my other clients, had a knee surgery, okay? Went to therapy, didn't really get much better, really compensated. Now is complaining to me 3-4 weeks ago. She came to me and she said, yeah, now my other side's hurting. And at that point, they had no idea why. And I'm like, well, your body compensated. So now we finally got that down, okay, where she's not having pain on that side anymore. And now the other side is starting to get stronger because now we're starting to work it in the way that it's supposed to be worked. So these are the things that we have to look at when it comes to injuries, okay? You're treating the human body like it's some kind of robot. It's not. It has to be treated properly. And the problem is most people in the medical industry, the strength and conditioning field, all these fields, don't understand the human body. We take it from a pharmaceutical perspective. I pop a pill and it should get better. You have to take it from a biblical perspective, in all honesty, and going back to the beginning of time and understanding what the human body should do and how it should function. And we don't do that. We think, well, everybody's different. Yes, it is. We're all different, thank God. But it's also how we move is the same. We should move a certain way. We heal a certain way. We do all these things a certain way, and yet we do the exact opposite. So, James, what do you see, when an athlete comes in? How do you see, especially people that maybe come in after, icing something or doing something against what we usually recommend them doing and then trying to get them back?
I think the biggest thing that I've noticed is, with a lot of them, is mobility. Their mobility is almost next to nothing, from a lot of the icing and just everything's so stiff, and working on getting that mobility back in, like you had mentioned, the moving process of getting that ankle moving, whatever joint may be affected, and getting that movement back in there, and working on getting everything else around it relaxed, because a lot of those muscles tend to tense up and things like that. And I know one of the other things that we always talk about is the athletes that maybe came to us the first time that injured an ankle, and you hadn't seen them for maybe a year or two, and oh, I rolled my ankle again. It's like, because we always give them a set of 3 different exercises typically on, hey, this is a thing that you have to make a part of your routine. I know you always mentioned, and you always tell them, well, do you brush your teeth every morning? It takes how long to brush your teeth? If you add this in every morning, you'll almost never have this problem ever again. Well, I haven't been doing my exercise. Well, you just answered your problem right there. They stop doing their exercise and then they wonder why they get that same recurring problem over and over and over again. And we have to beat it back into them. Hey, well, you stop doing your exercise. You got to do them again. This isn't a thing that you can do just when you have a problem. It's even when you feel good. We have other athletes that come in with other injuries. Well, my leg's feeling pretty good today. My hamstring, it feels good. Can I do this? No, not yet. This is not a 2-day process of whatever has been going on. It took 3-4 weeks for your injury to get to that point, and now we're trying to build it back up to where you don't have that problem. And that problem isn't like everyone wants that instant gratification of, well, it feels good, I'm gonna go back out and do maximal sprints. Well, they come to us the next day. Well, my hamstring hurts again. Well, what'd you do? Well, I did this. That's why it hurts. It takes time for these things to fix itself. And if you don't give it that time, you're never gonna get back to that point. And I see that way too often, and I haven't even been in this nearly as long as what you've probably seen.
Yeah, and I think people misinterpret the human body. Very rare as an injury occurred with that specific movement or that specific play. The body was already breaking down before that point. That was just a straw that broke the camel's back. Unless I came up to Coach James, him standing there, and I just took a bat and banged his knee as hard as I could, and I blew his ACL and blew his whole knee apart. Most likely, if James tears his ACL or does something to his knee, it's over time. So the body's breaking down. So if you're not strength training the proper way, okay, I know a lot of people go to strength training coaches, but a lot of stuff is just done incorrectly, all right? Unfortunately, that's, like I said, it goes back to being human. We train incorrectly, and then we wonder why so many injuries occur, all right? So what you have to look at is, am I training correctly? Am I doing the things properly? Because I know a lot of strength coaches, I know a lot of dads that try to say, well, I taught my son how to do this, now he can't move. That's interesting, because you're doing it incorrectly. And you also have back pain, right? But you're gonna do the same things that got you the back pain. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You have to find somebody who understands the human body, what they do with the human body, and then get them to that point, okay? And that is a key, because the human body eventually breaks down, and that's why. It's not that it gets old, okay? That's a misnomer. It's not because it got old. It broke down because we did stuff incorrectly. That's what it is. So if we can take care of it, then you don't have to worry about all these things. Then you do what I call, you just stay on it. You stay in the mitigation phase the whole time. Yes, you continue to improve, but it's a mitigation. So I get up many, many years ago when I was in high school, I busted up my ankles, right? Have never had an ankle issue since, because I do a routine that takes me 2 to 3 minutes every day. Simple. I just figured it out, worked on it, and now I don't have ankle issues. I played college basketball, never had an ankle issue. All these things went along. Never had that ankle issue that I had back in high school, because I figured out what I needed to do, and I did that constantly. Same thing when I have a shoulder issue. When I had a shoulder issue before, I worked on it, don't have any shoulder issues. I don't have any pain anymore, because I figured out what I needed to do. Every single person can do it, but you gotta be willing to take the time. And that's why you gotta find somebody who understands the human body, and then understands that, hey, listen, you're gonna have to do stuff on your own. Coach James and I cannot be with you all the time. Humanly impossible, okay? Nor do we wanna be, okay? We have other things we gotta do with our life. But you have to do it. If you wanna be an athlete, okay, and you wanna reach a high level, that's what you gotta do. If you wanna be a human being, and you wanna stay out of injuries, and you wanna stay out of pain, then you got to be willing to put time in. You got to get uncomfortable to be there. And that's one of the keys is you have to continue to progress. You have to get out of that comfort zone and you have to continue to do it. Yes, brushing teeth sucks. It sucks that you have to brush your teeth, but you have an alternative. Okay, you can have your teeth fall out. Well, I don't really care. I mean, they're your teeth, but you can't complain about it then because you didn't take care of them. Okay? You need to take care of the human body. The human body heals at all times. Okay? Heals at all times. Whether it heals correctly or wrong, that's totally up how you feed it and how you treat it. That's the key. It constantly heals, but you need to feed it and guide it in the right direction so it heals properly, or you're going to run down the road. Well, oh man, I don't know why my ankle's turned out like this and it hurts and I sprained my ankle. Well, maybe because you do that all the time and that's what it does. Okay? Should be straight on. You have to figure those things out, and that's key to our making sure our body's in check. Okay? So if I hurt my right side, I got to make sure I get back as quickly as possible, not too fast, like Coach James said, that you're re-injuring it again, but fast enough so you take the stress off the other side. Okay, so you got to make sure you're getting the right training, the right therapy, the right whatever after surgery once you injure yourself. Because if not, you're just going to go down the wrong path. And I'm telling you. And I'll get into the whole thing on ice and why you should never be using that crap at all, except maybe in your drinks. All right, that's about it. All right, this is Coach Dave,
Coach James,
the Game Changer.